Hey, it's Erica. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Broken Chronicles. We're still in season 1, but this is episode 5. Today we have Miss Shane Arnold. How you was doing, Miss Arnold?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for sharing your story with us. So, what does trauma mean to you?
Trauma means, oh wow, trauma means anything that happens that you still like a PTSD sort of. Those like what happens afterwards, after whatever the incident that happened, and like sometimes you still go through that trauma through your everyday life.
Right, right. Okay. So, how old were you when you experienced your first set of trauma?
I was 7, 8,
And how long
somewhere around.
did trauma last?
Till about 15.
Okay. Okay. What kind of trauma did you experience?
Physical, sexual, mental.
Okay. Okay. So let's hone in on that sexual abuse. The person who sexually abused you, do you still have a relationship with them to this day?
Unfortunately, I have to.
Okay. Okay. Are you okay with sharing who your abuser is?
I would just call him D.
Okay. All right. So how did that take place? Was it something that, like you said, it started when you were about 7 or 8 and it lasted till you were about 15 years old, which is very traumatic, and I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. So when it came to that sexual abuse piece, did you tell anyone?
You know, you can tell anybody and they don't believe you. I mean, you can be just sitting, like I'm sitting here and it can happen and they don't believe you. You just feel like, why no one believes me? No matter how much evidence you have, no matter how much proof you have, no matter how you say it, if no one believes you, then
Okay. So with the sexual
go.
abuse, with the sexual abuse, um, so was it you told your mother or your caretaker?
I told my parents, told my grandma, you know, growing up, I believe in my culture, we don't discuss that.
Mm.
So I believe like we don't discuss that. So if it happens, they like slide it under the rug and try to reward you with things to make you forget. And it's like you cannot forget what happened to you.
So when you say reward you, what type of things do you mean by that?
Like they'll go, oh well, you want to go to your friend's house, you can go to your friend's house, or you want to get some new shoes. They'll try to bribe you with shoes, clothes, food, anything,
So
anything
your
that can.
abuser was your abuser a family friend, a family member, was it someone close to you?
It was a sibling,
Okay. Yeah.
and it wasn't like he abused just me. He abused my little sister as well, or
Okay.
our little.
So I'm sure that was something hard for your family to accept, something hard for your family to face. So you said no one really believed you. At what point, or even was there a point where they actually believed what you had to say?
When my cousin caught him in the act, that's when I want to say hell came over, and then that's when like that when you go through one, you go through a multiple abuse. So that there hell came.
Okay. So, wow. Is this your biological sibling
We
or is this
shared the same.
a sibling?
Yeah.
Okay.
My mom and dad had full custody of him.
Okay. After they discovered that you were telling the truth, did they remove that person from out of the home?
Nope. He went to, I don't know what they call it, but he went to like this little foster. I don't know what's the technical term for the home, but he was there for about 2 months, and then he came back, and it was like he didn't bother me and my sister, but like the police was informed. They took, our statements and everything, and then like after that, like he didn't bother us too much, but later on we found out that he went again to my little cousin.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. So, how is your relationship with him now?
Because at the end of the day he's we have kids and I have kids. We want to communicate when it comes to our kids. We don't really have a close relationship that we used to have. Like I could call him back in not knowing what was going on, because like, I'm young, so I don't know the proper term for it. But then as I got older and I realized this is not right, then I started saying, okay, this is not what I want to be with him. Our so when he went to college, I was like, cool, fine. I don't have to worry about him. I didn't care for him. I still don't care for him. I care for his kids, because at the end of the day, his kids are his kids. They don't ask to be here. We have a very estranged relationship. Him and my sister have a very estranged relationship. Him and my cousin have a very estranged relationship. My parents somewhat don't really, they care, but they don't care. And I think like growing up the way we did, and like I said, our culture, how things come out, I think we're talking about it, and I don't think a lot of people talk about it then. So I think like this here of us trying to break the barriers is history, because a lot of people were like, oh well, why you wait so late to say what's going on? Well, it's not. Who can tell me when I can say my truth? I mean, it didn't happen to you. Now I can say like to the day it do affect me in my relationships, because at the end of the day, like it took me for a minute to get to a point where I can be able to trust man. Even my father, I mean, my father, if he didn't, he worked so much, so he was there, but he wasn't there. Like, I don't know how to explain that, because he worked third shift, and then
No,
sometimes he worked third. And
he was a hard worker.
yes,
He's
so
constantly at work.
he was never, he was there, but he, like I said, he worked so much, because at the end of the day, my daddy had 5 kids.
Mhm.
So 3 lived in the household with him, and then 2 don't. So he used to always make sure we had, we didn't have our wants, but we had our needs.
Right.
That's just put it like that. And then when it came to a situation like that, then we got what we wanted. Me and my sister, we got what we wanted.
Mhm.
And that's when I was like, okay, y'all doing all of this. I'm from me as a kid, I'm saying, so you kind of believe me in a way. Not saying that we're not the first people that he did it to. Not saying we're the last person he did it to. But it's like at some point, when do you start believing your kids? It took a long time for me to actually tell people what happened.
And why do you think it took you so long?
Because going back, like my mom and dad used to always say, what happens in the household stays in the household. That's how I was taught. You don't go out and tell our business to anybody. You just don't do that. And if you did do that, it's like a walk of shame. Like
Right.
growing up with 2 different culture diversities is a walk of shame. Jamaicans don't believe in it, and Africans don't believe in it. So it's like you have to really sweep what's going on under the rug. And even though you can express your feelings, express how you feel, it's still like, what now? He's still here. He's still here. And then like you look into your daddy, like, are you doing something to your child? Are you doing something to your son? So then that put another string relationship between my daddy, his son, my mama, husband, and her stepson, and her daughters who's going through the issues.
So did that traumatic experience affect you into your adulthood, and that did it affect your parenting, or has it affected your parenting?
it affected my adulthood because, like I said, I never dated nobody, and because I always felt like, who wants to date somebody who's been molested as a kid? Who wants to date somebody who's done been through so much for so many years, and then like I said, I was 15 when it stopped. I don't. Something just said stop. Something just said I'm going to be able to fight back because, like I said, he's a man. He's just as big as I am, and uh, biologically, males have more power than females. So you just lay there and don't want to fight, because if you fight, then he fights you, and then it's like more problems, more everything. So who wanted to date somebody who went through all of this? And when I finally got into college, oh baby, I'm not gonna say I was out there and wilding, but I'm gonna say I went through a whole period where I was trying to find myself.
So do you think you attempted to find and heal yourself through sex for a period of time?
So I'm not gonna say I had sex like that, because like at the end of the day, I did like had like my four main guys that I did just use them for, and that was like only four, or then one got then two. But I can't say it took me a minute to find myself, and when I finally found myself, it was like, okay, I want to settle down now because I know who I am. I done been through this growing up. I done went through and see what life is gonna be like outside being in my parents' house. I done went through and see what life is gonna be like if I don't talk to my brother for X amount of years, and I knew what it was gonna be like. The challenges was when I went home that I had to see him.
Mhm.
The other day he was in college too before he dropped out. But when we was home, it was like I'll be in my room and then he'll be over there downstairs somewhere looking like caca the food. But like growing up, then my sister was like 3 or 4, so she didn't understand. But I can say, seeing her now, I think that affected her a lot more than it affected me, because I spoke out more about it more recently, and she's still to the point where now she's just coming out about how she feels. And
Have
by
you,
the way, difference. So I'm 28, she's 23, and looking at her, she's going through more health issues than I am, mental health issues, because she never spoke out about it, or because the age difference from when it happened to her was traumatic within itself.
um, have you healed from this?
I don't think one can ever heal from this. I'm not even gonna be funny. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. You can never be healed from it, because at the back of your mind, you still, even if you married, even if you not married, dating somebody and anything, you will always wonder, are you gonna be that guy who do that to our child, whether you have a boy or a female? Because you have parents of the day who still doing it to their kids, and you feel some type of way. There's no way. There's no way to be healed. You can think you're overcome it and push it to the side, but sometimes when you're looking at, like, for example, my daughter's 4 now. So when I look at her, I'm like, okay, is this guy that I'm dating, been dating for 4 years, is he gonna do what happened to my sister when she was around this age, or will he do it to me, force me, or will he do it to anybody? So it's just like, now what? But then you have to say, okay, every man is not the same. You have to really, really dig deep and say every man is not the same. You have to try to have faith that you wouldn't want him to do was to you or your child that he wouldn't want somebody to do to his daughter or to his son. And it's really hard because you never know what someone's thinking. You never know. You can think you know somebody, but you, at the end of the day, you'd be shocked. There'll be that one person that you think you know will be the person to do it. One person who not only would do it, or the person who would change your mind and say, okay, you can have faith. So, like I said, I don't think I'm never gonna be healed about it, but I take my day one step at a time. I take my
What
moments one day at a
tried?
time.
in order to overcome this experience, this traumatic experience for you? Have you tried
I,
therapy?
I tried to overcome. I am, at the end of the day, I am more just saying, take everything one day at a time. And if my daughter gets to the point where she want to tell me, I'm going to believe her, because at the end of the day, I wish somebody would have believed me. How believe me growing up.
Have you tried therapy or any other type of forms of therapy?
I have, but it's like I have, but when you try to have your parents in there to hear how you feel about it, it's a shutdown moment. Because they don't want to go back and relive the past. They want to look into the future, which is fine. But at some point, you have to know how somebody felt in the past to get to the future, so somebody can get overcome it. So I think that's the reason why I have to overcome it in a different way, because my parents
They
don't
don't
want to.
acknowledge it.
Yeah, they don't want to acknowledge it, because at the end of the day, my parents were they mental physical abused you just for anything.
So let's talk about that. Do you need a moment?
No, go Caroline.
So let's talk about that physical abuse and mental abuse piece, if you don't mind. So as far as the physical abuse, how long did that take place?
Oh man, physical abuse. I think my mom and dad realized they can't hurt nobody or damage somebody, or I'm gonna say they grew within themselves, because we all know if you make bad grades, your parents gonna punish you. We all know if something happens to your siblings, the oldest gets in trouble. Like a common thing no matter what. But I think sometimes my parents would take it beyond that. Like, okay, I got in trouble this one day, but the next day they want to relive a moment, because I want to say they want to hurt somebody as much as my sister was hurt. And then I was like, how did y'all grow up? So my mama's number 9 out of 10 kids. So she's the last two that was born, within the last two that was born. And growing up, I would say that it was hard for her because she was the last female, and she was, well, because my aunts were twins. They were they like 30 years apart, something like that. Okay, so it's like it's hard for them. Well, they're 20 something years apart, so it's hard for them to say how they grew up. And then my mom used to say, "Well, I couldn't do this because my brothers or my older sister was doing this," and I think in some ways she lashed out against us from how she was growing up. Like, I can't help the way I was. Like, if I came home one day, I can tell you for good example, I came home and said, "Mama, my period started." I got beat because my period started. I'm looking for you to help me, and you beat me. I can't help that my period started. I don't know. I think she beat me because she felt embarrassed that it happened at school. But like, I didn't know nothing about the female body like that until high school, because my mama didn't like us to take them classes. So she used to think that she thought that I was a fast girl, and a boy came and did something to me, and that's how I started bleeding. And realistically, I was just bleeding because I was becoming a woman. Or another example is, I'm in the 6th grade wearing a size double D in bra. I used to get beat because I had double D in bras in the 6th grade. And in the 8th grade, I went to a triple D, and I was getting beat because I were I was I was just developing more than she can handle, to be honest. And I can't help that. That's how I'm developing. And I used to get beat for that, or I used to get beat because I was bigger than what she wanted. So I used to get that physical abuse, and I used to take the physical abuse from my sister, because like I said, we're 5 years apart. So I used to literally step in between my mom and my sister. because my mom will lash out at me, she'll lash out to she can't till she's tired. And sometimes it's just like what happened to you as a kid that you're not wanting to talk about.
Has she talked about her childhood, or have you asked her about the things she went through in her childhood?
I tried, and it's like she'll start saying a story. You can tell that it's gonna be a bad story, and then she'll stop. Like, stop, shut down completely, and say something, and go and just veer off the left and say something else. And it's like
Does your mom acknowledge the fact that she straddled the line between discipline and child abuse?
she has, her and my daddy has. So growing, like I said, growing up, my brother has a glass eye because my mom and dad used to beat us that bad. Yes.
Because what?
He has a glass eye now because my mom and dad used to beat us that bad. Yeah.
What happened to his eye, if you don't mind me asking?
My brother got in trouble and my daddy lost it. Straight lost it. Straight lost it.
Did he hit him with something?
I don't know what he hit him with. Because I wasn't in the room physically, but I know it was that bad to where they had an ambulance and he lost an eye from that. Yeah.
So the physical abuse wasn't just on you; it was on all the kids in the home.
It was on all three of us in the house.
And I know you said your dad worked a lot, but was your dad a disciplinarian as well?
My dad, he didn't. He was the one who was always trying to ease the tension up. But like, if he had to be that stern person, he would. But it was more my mama. Like, 'cause my mama was home with us all the time. I mean, she worked, but she was that parent who was home. So you needed homework, you needed this line, food was cooked, laundry. Well, laundry was done by us, but for the learning aspect, it was done by her.
Um, how's your relationship with your mom now?
It's better than it used to be. I still don't tell her everything. I just think some things just make meant to me to keep to myself. But I can say like she do say stuff, and I be like, "Are you serious?" And then like, cause I don't want to get smacked, cause she always say, "I brought you in this world, I'm taking you out." I don't want to cross that line with my mother. I mean, I know some parents, some kids can, but I can't. I still won't try because I'm fearful what she might do. Like I said, at the end of the day, my parents were parents that was very strict.
How did the physical abuse that you went through in your affect you in your adulthood, and how or did it affect you in the way that you parent?
So the physical was more like the physical. Like sometimes I think like because I see my parents fight growing up. I mean, blow for blow.
So you're also a victim of victim of witnessing domestic violence.
Yes, blow for blow. Getting a flower pot thrown at my daddy. A extension cord hit towards my daddy. A belt. Hot grits. Yeah.
Are your parents still together?
They are. They are.
Well, they hopefully they have grew past all of that. Um, wow.
They've been together since they was in like the 7th or 8th grade.
Wow.
They've been married. See, my sister's 20. They've been married for 24 years, 25 years, 24 years. One of them.
One of those.
It's September for my sister's birthday, for our birthday. So 24 years. This year make 25. Okay. So they've been together for a long period of time. So that's why I said, I think, like I said, they've been together for so long. I'm like, wow.
Do you think trauma is normal for you? Is that how it felt growing up?
Yes, how I felt growing up. Yes, trauma is always there. No matter how you try to put it, trauma is always there. My uncle who was in the military was like, it took him to get to the military to realize that it no matter how he tried, he gonna run into trauma.
So, I heard you mention you don't think healing is possible. Why do you feel like that?
For someone who been and for someone who grew up with trauma, who done been through so much, who's still going through, who's still trying to get over it, I think it's gonna be a long. It's like one of them long life journeys. Either you're ready to accept the healing or you're not. And I think I'm not really ready to accept the healing because I still need those people who hurt me to understand how they hurt me, why they hurt me, and what can we do to one um to stop the healing, to stop the trauma from future generations, and two for them to accept what they did. And I think that's an issue that we're going, like me and my sister, we're going through now. That we need for them to accept what they did to us, and like I said, they're not really accepted.
And I know that can be hard, and I'm not saying this just to say this is coming from someone coming from myself who has also been a witness of domestic violence, dealt with sexual abuse, dealt with the physical abuse, the emotional neglect piece as well. So I get where you're coming from. But one thing I will say is healing is definitely possible, and I think you are completely right when you say you have to be ready to heal. Um, and being and sometimes being ready to heal means accepting that apology that did not come. And I know that it sucks. Um, but for me, 2020, I set 2020 for my year of healing. I started out by doing therapy. And then I decided to get on medication because I was diagnosed as bipolar, with also with clinical depression. So along with my therapy and my medications, I then started doing yoga and I started working out every day. I'm not going to say like working out, but like going for a 30-minute walk in the morning and a 30-minute walk by myself at night before I go to bed. That helped release a lot of my tension. Yoga helps me, meditation helps me. But it all is a growing process. So I
It,
do want you to know it is definitely possible. And I want you to know that if you really want to go through this process of healing, I have a lot of resources that I can hook you up with so we can go through this process together of healing. Because I want you to get to that point. You're going to make me cry. I want you to get to that point to heal because I promise you, once you get to that point of healing, that sense of peace that you have unlike any other. Don't get me wrong, just because I felt like I have healed doesn't mean I don't still get flashbacks. It doesn't mean that when I think about it, it still does not make me feel some type of way. It just doesn't weigh me down and cause that dark cloud over me anymore, if that makes sense. And I'm not going to say that I have healed from all of my trauma because the emotional neglect that I received from my mother is something that I'm still healing from because that is something that we are still dealing with. That is something that she has not acknowledged that she lacks in. And in all honesty, I don't think it's something that she cares to improve on. But I don't want to put words in her mouth. But I get where you're coming from, Shane. I do. And I know it hurts, baby girl. I do. But if you want to heal, I am here for it. I have an art expressive therapist. I have a dance therapist. I have equine therapy. We have support groups. If you want to go through something where you're not alone with hear other people's story before you open up, I can set you up with support groups. If you like animals and you want to do something outside of your home, I can get you hooked up with equine therapy. There's so many outlets out here for you. Meditation is something you can start with, and I'll even help you walk through that. I have a yoga therapist that I can hook you up with that you all can do virtual therapy together. Not virtual necessary therapy, but the virtual yoga. But you have to get to a place where you're tired of being a victim. You have to get to a place where you're tired of operating in that hurt. And you have to get to a point where you're ready to actually let it go. And I know you may want for those people who have hurt you to acknowledge it, to come up, to recognize how much hurt they have caused in your life, how much what they have done has affected you from your childhood to your adulthood. But sometimes those apologies don't happen. Sometimes they don't come. My mother did eventually apologize for some of the things, but that apology didn't come until I already had accepted her apology. Until the things that she said, I brushed off, like her not being an emotional support for me, her not being the grandmother that I feel like she needs to be. Once I got to a point where I'm like, it is what it is. I'm not going to stop improving in my life. I'm not going to stop my happiness. I'm not going to allow your behavior, your own trauma that you have going on reflect upon me and bring me down, because I allowed it to do that for so long. But I got to a point where I was done. I was done with feeling like I was a victim. I was done with operating through a broken foundation and operating off of survival and not out of love. I struggled with loving my husband when we first got together. I struggled with loving my children and showing them affection the way that I should in the beginning. I had to go through therapy, and my husband had to have a face-to-face wake up conversation with me, like an intervention. Like, I know that what you went through in your childhood was hard, but you have to find a way to break that. You don't want your kids to have a childhood that they have to heal from. We have to stop this cycle. And the only way we can stop this cycle is if we heal from our own broken foundations, so we don't hand off that broken foundation to our child.
And that's why I was saying, like, she's the excellent. Now she's the excellent. She's an excellent grandparent. She's an excellent grandparent when it comes to. I guess because I have her first biological grandkid and only biological grandkid. She's an excellent grandparent. I ain't never had to question that part, and I think seeing her trying to be better with my daughter is what's. I think it's her way to apologize. I'm thinking this is her way to apologize because I never, if I call her and say, "Hey, Carol, I need this," she don't got a job. She haven't worked in within almost a year and almost 2 years going on. I bet you it'd be if I have it by tomorrow. If I don't have it by tomorrow, I have it by Wednesday, and it's like I'll be trying to think like maybe that's her way to say I'm like when I went through having miscarriages, she was there, and then I was like, okay, so you're here for this, you're here for that, but where was when? So you're here for me now, but what about then when I really needed you? So like I said, it's coming, but I think it's coming in her way,
Right.
and I think my child is her way because she like my daughter's name after my mom. She's named her whole name is based off her mama and her mother. So I think that alone is showing her that alone is how she's apologizing because, like I said, I mean my brother, yeah, he got kids. My other brothers, yeah, my sister don't got no kids, ain't gonna have none. But I think when it comes to her, she's been more being the mommy, being that mother. If I'm lacking, she's picking it up, and vice versa. And I think that's her way to say she's sorry because she's now being emotional support. She's now listening more than she would listen to me. And I was like, and I'm like, now I'm looking like, I'm doing the steps. I'm doing the steps. I'm on, I think it's called TED Talk, like
Mhm.
some TED Talk. I'm listening to that and I'm doing the steps. I'm doing the steps. And seeing my daughter and my mama together. It's funny, but it's been better. And now that my sister's going through therapy, I see that my sister is being better. Me and my mama, I think we just do things in our own way, and I think, like I said, we trying to do my child. So I think that's our way of saying we're sorry. But at the end of the day, I still want to hear it.
No, I completely understand. wanting to hear those words come from your mouth. I accepted the apology, but more peace came. Not saying that I didn't have peace, because once I accepted the apology, I did feel this level of peace, this level of weight lifted off my shoulders. However, that full weight was lifted when that apology came out of her mouth. Even though she didn't apologize for everything, just the fact that she was able to acknowledge the way that she raised us wasn't the best, but she was raising us based off of what she knew. Because my mother was young.
And that's what I'm saying. She raised us basically off of what she knew. And like I said, she's number 9 out of 10 kids. So by the time they get to her, I think they was very, like I said, my grandparents, I think they was very emotionless by the time they got to her and my uncle. But at the same time, you put something on my mama that she didn't ask to be there. And then she had me, I didn't ask to be here. And it's just like, from what, this is how she felt. And sometimes, just, I was telling somebody the other day, how I was raised, I try not to be that same person how I'm trying to raise my daughter. I know sometimes they kind of overlap because certain things I want to instill on her. And to this moment, she can tell me everything that happens at school, and I love it. She can tell me everything that happens between her and her cousins, every dialogue, every little word that she can recall she's saying, and I'm listening. I'm listening, but at the same time, like I say, I flashback. Why my mama couldn't listen to me? Why did it take somebody else for her to finally want to listen? And a lot of times, I was wishing that someone else saw it earlier on, and not till when we was later on in life. And maybe then I would have a better chance of feeling better growing up to establish those relationships, to establish how to have a conversation, or how to be emotional to somebody, or to not feel like a cold person, but I'm really not. And I
Just have
think
more
that's
time with your emotions.
yeah, and I think that's what I be trying to say. If I had somebody who would listen to me earlier, that's would be so much better.
So, what message would you give to anyone who is going through your situation and who has been through your situation?
Don't wait so long to speak out. The healing process starts when you're ready to speak out. Like, I spoke out before, but this is the first time I actually spoke out and let somebody record me.
And I
So
appreciate that. I appreciate you telling your story. I know this had to be very hard for you. But I hope this is the true first step in your journey of healing. And I promise you, if you don't want to go through that journey alone, I am here for it. But again, Shane, I thank you for your time today. That's all we have for today, guys. Again, this is Broken Child Chronicles Season 1. This is episode 5. Have a good one.